So this is a traditional Hawaiian song for good morning to the sun, awaken and arise from the deep ocean and climbing to the highest heavens and just like arising within ourselves and awaking our own spirits and beings. E ala e, ke la I kahikina, I kamawana, kamawana honu, pi I kaleva nu, I kahikina, ayakala, e ala e.
Hey, hey, love it.
Thank
You're
you.
such a good singer.
Oh gosh, thanks. I give thanks for this beautiful brand new day, for Claire and I to be joined together in this beautiful and amazing podcast that we have created from our heart's service and this guidance from within, bringing us together for being able to share healing from our own personal experience and being able to support others who are in their personal healing experience as well. May this podcast be blessed with so much love, so much light. May the ancestors of the highest good be with us. May Spirit guide our thoughts, our voices, and allow for all the listeners to receive the highest benefit directly into their hearts, inspiring them for their own growth, healing, change, and empowerment. And so it is.
So it is.
So it is.
Love it.
Awesome. All right. Ready?
Ready.
Welcome to this episode of the Empowered Adoptee Podcast. We're super stoked to have you here with us today. Hey, Claire, how's it going?
Hey, Lori. I'm doing well. How you doing? How
Well,
you
I'm doing
doing?
pretty darn well because how you doing?
How
How you
you
doing?
doing?
How you doing? Because I am recording from the beautiful Hawaii Islands.
Oh, what? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, you just sang us that beautiful lullaby. Was it a lullaby? What kind of
It's
song
not a
was that?
lullaby. It's actually a traditional morning song greeting the rising sun in the east.
Wow, wow. Well,
Yeah.
your voice is super powerful, I have to say. I think, I mean, I feel like art is such a like an innate part of us and is so needed for expression and just to be in full alignment with ourselves, and that really comes through when you sing. I just had to say that.
Mm. Oh, thank you, Claire. That's really sweet.
I get the full
I really,
essence of Lori when you sing.
oh, thanks. Yeah, I really honestly just try to get out of the way when I sing. Let the song sing through me instead of me thinking, oh, I am singing, or I'm trying to do this thing, or oh, I sound really crappy. I just let it through. And yeah, and then I let go of the attachment of my criticism because man, my criticism just knocks me right down, and I can't do a darn thing then if I
Mm.
let her, come in and take control. So I just let myself be in the art of the sound, or art of the movement, or art of the doing, whatever it is that I'm doing, just because, it's maybe it's not about me. Maybe it's about just allowing that song to be voiced and to be felt and to be heard. Mm.
Mm, yes, exactly. And just being maybe, being the song, being one with the
That's
song.
right. Being one, yes, being one with the song. Hey, do you know what the monk asked for when he was at the veggie dog cart?
No.
He said, I'll take one with everything.
Oh, that's super awesome. I love
That's
a good
pretty
joke.
cheesy. It's
That's
pretty
a good
cheesy.
cheesy one, but I mean, I'm here for it. I love the cheesiness.
Me too. Bring on the cheese. I hope you're not lactose intolerant, as a lot of Koreans and Asian people are.
Yes, yes, I
Yes.
am. We all are, I think, a little bit.
I know. I know.
Well, I'm so jealous that you get to be in beautiful Hawaii, and I wish I
Oh,
was there, but I'm there. in spirit. And I wish you were here with me in Vietnam. I took a beautiful walk on the beach tonight with the new moon, and I thought of you. And as I was listening to the waves rolling in, it was just beautiful. I got 20,000 steps walking today, just
Oh
on
my
the beach is
goodness.
amazing. And
Mm.
just, I don't know if you have felt like this energy from today. I'm definitely feeling it. Maybe it's the new moon energy, but I'm here for it. And I don't know, what is maybe an intention that you want to receive from this month, with the new moon. I think it's all about new beginnings and
Yes.
introspection and
Mhm.
intentions.
Yeah, I think for me, what's been coming up a lot recently, and also my intentions for the new moon, have been about ease, allowing for all of my projects and my goals for this at this time to be able to take action, but that it doesn't have to come with it has to be hard, it has to be tough, it's got to be a struggle, but I can be able to achieve all these things through ease, through love, through inspiration, through connection, through excitement. And that's been my intention for this new moon is being able to do the work but not having to bring all the heavy suffering of like, oh, I got to do this work thing, or I'm creating this thing that I love, or oh, look at my beautiful amazing life. It's wow, and letting myself own it, because
Mm,
a part of me has been really afraid to be seen and to be heard in the person who I have chosen and grown and done the work to be, and to be seen in that.
mm,
Because to be seen being happy, to be joyous, to be living the life of my dreams when people may not be there yet, and feeling, responsible for them. And then I'm thinking, well, hold on a second. The only person and the only life I'm responsible for is my own.
mm,
And however, if it triggers someone the way that I live my life, then maybe that is their work.
mm.
And who am I to keep someone from doing their work?
Yeah, super powerful.
Yeah.
Love
So I've been
that.
just really trying to encourage myself to continue fully being me, fully living my life to the fullest, no matter what. Because there's no amount of suffering that I can experience or do or go through that's going to help the suffering in the world or within someone else.
Mm. Well, I do believe that there's something to be said about collective healing. And, there's collective suffering, but there's also this energy that we can send out to the universe and send to specific groups of people. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's something that the world could use a little more of. And I've been trying to send out my energy and just send it out to groups of people that I know could use a little bit of extra love and care and kindness and compassion and collective healing, like
Mm-hmm.
the CAD community.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I will be maybe like scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, and I'm seeing a lot of raw emotions, a lot of, big emotions, a lot of suffering, a lot of triggers out there. And then
Mm-hmm.
I have to, that's my cue to get off of social media, stop scrolling. I get off and I just kind of put my hand on my heart and I send a little prayer and a little bit of love and intention to the community or the people that I want to target. And I think that it's
Absolutely.
real. I don't know, it might be too woo-woo-y for some people, but I definitely think that is being received. When I send it, I feel like people are receiving it, people who are open to receiving. But
Absolutely, Claire. We are only just energy. We are electricity. You know, our bodies are literally neurons firing. And I feel that when you connect your intentions and your thoughts into your heart and you bring it into feeling, that just creates ripples out into the world. And so thank you so much, Claire, for being such a loving and kind and compassionate person that you feel so deeply what other people are going through, even though you might be going through your own things as well. And
Yeah,
then,
for sure.
yeah.
Definitely going through my own things. But yeah, thank you for saying that, acknowledging that. I do appreciate you, Lori. And I think that my intention, I was thinking about tonight as I was walking um, on the beach with the new moon, my intention is letting go because I think as human beings, we tend to collect these negative energies. And, our subconscious thoughts, most of them are negative. And I do acknowledge that, even though I try to stay positive, I try to have, you know, um, the rose-colored glasses on, and I try to see the world through my lens that I have cultivated this, this new awareness and consciousness, and how I see the world is very different from how I used to. But I think that letting go of some of these negative beliefs about myself, these limiting beliefs about myself, some of these that came from my core wounds,
Mm-hmm.
as an adoptee, which maybe is a great segue into our podcast topic. And
Yeah.
because this is something that's been on my heart for a little while, and I'm working on letting things go.
Mm.
So, how about if you bring us in with the topic for today?
Well, I'd love to bring us in with the topic, but I just wanted to reflect on what you said. Letting things go, I feel like is so powerful because when we let things go, it creates space for something new to take place in that place where we just released that old negative belief or thought that doesn't really serve. And
Mhm.
bringing us to our topic that we're so stoked to share with everyone is, am I enough? Letting go of the belief of not enough and releasing that fear of unworthiness.
Mm.
And
Mm.
Claire, what is your personal experience with this old belief of not enough?
Mm. Well, Laura, it goes so deep in me. And just kind of what I like to do sometimes is I like to think about the word and feel into it and see what comes up for me. And so the word not well, unworthy, maybe that's the word. Unworthy is something that has been with me for a very long time. And I
Mm-hmm.
do believe that it is it's not, I don't think it's innate. I don't think we're born with it. Because I do know that babies,
Mm-hmm.
when you're born, you have a couple of innate fears. And,
Mm-hmm.
one of them is, being startled, with like a loud noise or a bright
Mm-hmm.
light or the fear of falling. They will
Mm-hmm.
have an innate fear of these things. And then the other one that I know of is the fear of abandonment.
Mm.
We as babies form close bonds with our uh, mother, father, caregivers. And so we always have that fear. As babies, we don't understand that if they're going to go away for a minute, they'll come right back. So there's that fear that's innate. But I think the other types of fears that we develop, like the fear of unworthiness, is a
Mm-hmm.
learned response from adoption trauma. And I do
Mm-hmm.
believe that this is something that has impacted me my whole life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and it goes really, really deep. So I mean, I'll get into and I'm going to share a lot of vulnerable personal stories because it brings up a lot for me. But I just want to kind of give an overview of what the topic of today's discussion, what our chat's going to be about. I think what I'd like to do is kind of go in and explore what the roots of unworthiness are with regard to adoption stories, our stories, how the societal and family narratives also shape our sense of self. And
Mm-hmm.
this sense of self as an adoptee, I had a very deep lack of sense of self. I don't know if that makes sense, but I didn't know who I was. And I had a very deep sense of shame. I don't know where I came from, but I think now learning about, you know, the culture of South Korea and the all of the political and I think like just all of the information that we're discovering, as adoptees, with like the PBS special coming out, all of the ambiguity ambiguity around our records, um, hearing stories and thinking like, oh my gosh, like maybe my birth mother was a prostitute or a comfort woman. Like these kind of things have surfaced in my adult life, and it kind of has shaped my narrative of who I am and where I came from. It brings a lot of shame, feelings of shame come up. And then also, I would like to share some of our tools for shifting this internal dialogue, that we've had as adoptees almost our whole lives, growing up with this internal dialogue about not feeling accepted, not feeling like we're worthy, not being enough, having to people please or prove our worth. So how can we shift that internal dialogue? I don't think there's one thing that you can do just to make it go away, but I like to share some tools that we have that we've been doing to work on ourselves about letting go. It's all about letting go of that.
Mm.
How about you, Lori?
Well, that's super beautiful and powerful, Claire. To even just be able to come to the awareness that that's something that we can let go of, that that's something that we can actually shift our beliefs around worthiness or unworthiness. And I feel like this is a human being issue, you know, definitely it's something that comes up for adoptees and in adoption stories because I feel like it's so embedded in our being and in our narratives because we're trying to understand why someone would actually release us, relinquish us, and so much of it feels that, it's about us and us not being good enough, but in actuality, as we're finding out more information, we're finding out about child trafficking. We're finding out about how falsified records and how maybe it's not about us being good enough or unworthy, but they were just the circumstances of our experience. And the circumstances of our experience does not actually equate to our value of how
Mm,
valuable we are.
mm-hmm,
And so, for my own self, thinking about worthiness, I and or unworthiness or not enough, it's definitely goes super deep for me. And it's something that I battled with for so long, and that's why I feel like it's so important to talk about this because I know a lot of people who are adoptees and some people who are not adoptees, they're just human beings having this experience, deal with this feeling of unworthiness and not enough. And to explore the roots of unworthiness in my own adoption story goes, I think, all the way back to a time of, I almost think of it as pre-verbal in the sense that I, before I knew English, I can't think of my thoughts of when I spoke Korean because I was adopted when I was 5 years old.
oh, right.
And so for me, that pretty much equates to nonverbal.
Mm-hmm,
But I can connect with the feelings
mm-hmm,
that that young part of me was feeling. And I think she definitely felt unworthy. I think she felt scared and confused. And because she didn't have any answers and there wasn't anyone there to give her answers, um, I think I just, thought, well, I must not be good enough,
Mm,
And then, of course, we get adopted, and some people might say, "But you were adopted, you know? You got to have the experience and you got to get out of the orphanage, you know? Like, how can you not be enough when you were chosen?"
mm,
And I was like, "Well, yeah, maybe I was chosen by someone else, but was that my choice to be chosen?"
mhm,
You
mhm,
know? And so, yeah, it goes super deep. And I think that, growing up and having that experience of the societal and family narratives around me and how it continued to kind of reinforce that belief of unworthiness, because that was already within inside of myself.
mhm.
And so it was just showing up in all kinds of ways. You know, like our brains, like if we have a belief, we will find reasons to continue believing that thought if that's what we're looking
Exactly.
for, you know?
Exactly. What were some of the examples of how it showed up for you in your life?
Oh, well, the way that it showed up for me in my life was, unfortunately, it was through neglect. It was through physical and verbal abuse. And I didn't really understand that during the time, but internally, there was a part of me that was feeling that I'm not enough to ask for what I want. So I'm just going to settle for whatever I can get,
Mm,
whatever attention I can get,
mm,
whether if that was abuse. And, there was also, lots of love and lots of my physical needs were met.
mhm,
Um, but for someone not to know what my emotional needs were, for me, I internalized as I'm not enough to be loved the way I wanted to be loved.
mm.
And as a young person and as a person who is feeling these emotions, um, it really showed up in ways of showing me that I didn't feel like I wasn't enough to have, the love that I wanted to receive, the kind of support, and I felt unworthy then to even receive that, you know?
Mm.
How about you, Claire? How did it show up for you in your life and your early childhood?
Yeah. Well, before I answer that, I just wanted to ask you a follow-up question about when you were thinking about when it showed up for you and you could feel the feelings and the emotions. Where in your body did you feel it? Like, where did it come up for you in your body? If you can go back to those times when you felt that feeling of unworthiness.
I think for me, if I could be able to break it down and get in my body more and feel into the young person's body back then, that it was probably stored in my heart area, in my chest, in my throat.
Mm,
Um, I think I felt it in my chest as like kind of like a heavy weight,
mhm,
and that heavy weight kind of made me go small and kind of curl up into like a little ball. And then I also, clearly you can kind of hear it. I felt it in my throat because
mm,
it was like my lack of ability to know how to ask for what I wanted
mm,
and for my needs to be met, or even thinking that I was worthy enough to have a need
mm,
for it to be met. It was
mm,
this feeling of not being worthy enough to share or express to even have my needs to be met. And so much of this, when we're talking about this kind of stuff, it's really we're going into the deep subconscious mind by
mhm,
going into the body and feeling into the deeper emotions and energy that is keeping us from being able to express, share, and feel free and open enough, safe enough to be able to speak to what our needs are. And I definitely didn't have those tools back then. I
Right,
just
right.
got smaller and smaller and smaller, and
Hmm.
um, my yeah, even just learning how to speak English, I didn't speak for a whole year, and I
Wow.
would just point at everything. And then one
Mhm.
day, I just started speaking full sentences.
Wow. And I can imagine how scared you must have been, a little 5-year-old who, you said that you didn't even realize that you could have needs. And if you were to have a need, I'm sure it was super scary for you to, I mean, even say what it was because the fear of not getting your needs met was probably like just as bad because it means rejection. And
Hmm.
well, if you weren't able to get your needs met, then that was a rejection of you, which kind of, I mean, all of these feelings like we're talking about that come up in your body, um, they're tied in with your beliefs, emotions, thoughts, and actions, which are part of the subconscious programming which we're receiving and all these downloads from even before we're verbal. So these are like big, scary feelings that you're feeling in your body, but without the language to be able to describe it and not having that safety, that feeling of safety no one probably modeled to you that feeling that you can ask for something and it's okay, to have needs. And then you never probably learned that it was if you didn't get your need met, if you weren't able to receive what it was that you needed at that time, it wasn't that you were defective because that's the
Hmm.
messaging that we probably received. That was that the reason why I can't get my needs met is because I'm defective. There's something wrong with me. There's that shame that comes up.
Hmm.
So I just want to say, like, my heart goes out to you and your little 5-year-old self, and because that must have been so scary for you to be living in that world. But yeah, I just want
Yeah,
to
and I
hug her.
thank you. Yeah, I received that hug, and she receives that hug. And I also want to say that I do feel that, my adopted parents did, for the most part, try their best with the tools that they did have, but they were also just, on their own journey of, trying to provide for a family and feeling stress about life. And they were in their own personal experience, and I don't think they knew how to show up for me, and I didn't know at the time how to show up for myself either. And so that kind of just, started building up that negative self-talk and those negative beliefs about feeling, unworthy in my subconscious and conscious mind at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess so for me, the way it showed up, I do believe that this was kind of like my feeling of unworthiness. It was kind of rooted in, I mean, it was rooted in loss, first of all, because as an adoptee, I mean, I learned ever since I could understand that I was adopted. And what that meant was that, we experienced loss. Even though my parents didn't really harp on that, they didn't talk about my birth family, my birth mother really, but I knew that I had lost my family. So there's that. There's the loss. There's also the racial identity struggles I had, not fitting in, not looking like my white family, like my white parents and friends, and everyone I knew was white. There is a lot of societal messages about adoption because most of this messaging was coming from our adopters and it's coming from their lens of adoption, not ours. And so we were given those messages, like we talked about last episode. You should be grateful. You have a better life. We saved you. So all of those messages are coming at us and we're receiving them. Um, and so there's also the duality of, like you had mentioned, you were chosen by your A family On the other hand, that meant that you were not chosen by your birth family. And so when I realized that, that was like, I was like a mind fuck because there were so many layers to this. Okay, it's so complex. And I was like, just thinking about this the other day. Okay, so we were given that message. Yes, we chose you to adopt you. You're special. We picked you out. And that was probably a lie. They were probably not able to just pick me out. But they said I was chosen. But then in my mind, growing up, I had struggled with the idea that my birth mother did not choose me. Like she gave me away. She gave me up for adoption. She relinquished me, whatever happened. I knew something happened and she couldn't keep me. So that layered with the white privilege that we talked about our families having, and then the socioeconomic power. I grew up in a white wealthy family. Not my family wasn't wealthy, that the town where I grew up in was wealthy. And so that the message that I received because of where I grew up and the fact that my parents chose me, the messaging was that I must be white and I must be wealthy in order to be worthy of having a family. Because there were no other really Asians, except for my sister growing up in my family, my adoptive sister, who's Korean. There was a handful of other Asians, adoptees, Korean and Filipino, I believe, in my town. So there was hardly any, mostly just white people. There were inner city black kids who were bused into my school from, from Boston in the area into the suburbs. Um, But growing up, I have to say it was my experience that I was just othered. Like I felt othered
Mm-hmm.
all the time, right? There were no racial or ethnic mirrors. There was no one to look at with my face, no role models. So I learned very early on that, wealthy white people deserve to have happy families. And my Korean family did not. And so somewhere in there, I got caught up in this. I'm not worthy of having a happy family because I am not white. So I think that kind of played into my wanting to be white so bad and doing like you know, um, I would do code switching. I would act so white. And then when I was around people of color, like my other Asian friends when I went to college, and my black friends, and I would feel so comfortable. I'd be like, okay, like you get me, I get you. We're both, like the
We're
underdog.
both white.
Yeah,
No,
so there
just
was
kidding.
that. So I mean, this was all going through my head, and it was like I said, it was just like a mind fuck. It was so complex. So that was why I felt these feelings of unworthiness. And so I tried really hard when I was younger, really hard to fit in, really hard to be accepted, really hard to people please and just win everyone's hearts. That was what I thought I needed to do. That was my survival mechanism, my coping. Um, yeah, that was my fight or flight until I
Mm-hmm.
realized that that wasn't working for me. But what it
Mm-hmm.
looked like, um, I had such low regard for myself. It was almost like I treated myself like a piece of garbage. And
Mm-hmm.
that showed up pretty much when I was a teenager. I would go and binge drink like every weekend to the point I would pass out and get up the next day, do it again.
Mm-hmm.
I would allow people to cross all my boundaries. I didn't have any boundaries. I let people abuse me, take advantage of me, take advantage of my body. My body wasn't mine. I didn't feel worthy to have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I talked so much shit to myself in my mind. Like you
Mm-hmm.
should have heard these dialogues. They were crazy. I
I
was like,
bet.
yeah, I mean, you should have
I
heard
bet
some of
you're
the
a little
things.
shit talker.
But I mean, I was a little punk when I was a teenager. I did like, and I'm sure that I was, I was just like angry. All these things were coming out of me. But at the same time, I really had this deep sense of wanting to be seen, wanting to feel
Mm-hmm.
understood. And I did want to be worthy. I did want to feel enough, but I didn't know what that looked like. I had no idea what that looked like, Lori.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, it was it was really hard to really figure out how to feel worthy because I spent decades just really just hating on myself, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I do realize that a lot of adoptees are in this place right now where that's how they feel about
Mm-hmm.
themselves. And my heart goes out because I was not like I am completely have let go of all of those feelings of unworthiness. I'm still working on myself. I'm still doing that inner work. But I just want to let everyone know that you being a human being makes you worthy just because you're human. It has nothing to do with your external achievements or validation or approval, or who loves you, or how much money you make, or
Mm-hmm.
what your family looks like on the outside. Having that, the happy family external. I think all of that is great. However, it doesn't mean that you have to achieve all of that to earn your worthiness.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That
Yeah.
you are already worthy just as you are. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that, Claire. I know that those times of adolescence and growing up were really tough, and not really being able to create that safety for yourself because of not really having a connection to your own self-worth, to your mind that was always, cutting you down, talking shit on you, and then not really having safety in your body because of not knowing how to have that worth to know that you can um, ask for your needs to be met on that body level. And I can completely relate because, I know we've spoken about this before, but I too, just completely shut down during my adolescent times with drugs and sex, alcohol, and it was uh, kind of just like my staple, and I had no idea. And I wish someone, you know, had said to me, "Hey, I think you might be in a shame spiral right now." I
Yeah.
wish that my future self could have come back and said, "Hey, you are enough, babe," and that you are in this place of feeling not enough, and that potentially I think I internalized the thoughts of that not being wanted, and if I was worthy they would have kept me, my
Mm.
birth family, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm not lovable enough, and if I would have been lovable enough I wouldn't have been given away, and
Yeah.
that I must prove my worthiness, so no one ever leaves me again, and these are those subconscious beliefs that I wasn't aware of at that time, but I was
Mm.
feeling it deep down secretly, you know?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so I feel that it's super important to talk about these things because they can really block us from being able to um, live authentically in our
Mm-hmm.
truth and be able to be in a place of true happiness. Because when we internalize that shame and spiral, as Brene Brown likes to call it, she says that it can lead then to perfectionism and people pleasing and
Oh
chronic
yeah.
self-doubt. And
Yes.
and that's something that I know we've both have had to do a lot of work around. And I see in a lot of the adoptee community of people who are just excel at
Mm-hmm.
whatever they do. They
Mm-hmm.
are like the best at whatever it is. But that is the person on their outside. And I, I don't want to push buttons, but I kind of wonder, like, what is the motivation behind all that effort? Is it coming from
Mm,
a place of inspiration and wanting to truly like achieve, and this is like, what you're wanting, or is this coming from a place of potentially people pleasing and
mm,
um, avoiding uh, what's the pain of not being worthy enough, so they just overachieve and overgive
mm-hmm,
then,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that eventually is just so exhausting. Trust me, we've been there,
I've been there too. Yeah, it's having to prove your worth, whatever you do, and be the best in the room. And can we just talk about jealousy? Because I feel like jealousy is something that is so intertwined with these feelings of unworthiness, because that's something that I have felt all my life. I've always felt jealousy. And jealousy, I don't think is a bad thing, but jealousy for me, it was like looking at, okay, so for example, I mentioned where I grew up is was Wellesley, Massachusetts. Super wealthy. Everyone around me had tons of money. Our family did not. I mean, we lived there, we had a nice house. My dad had a great job. I don't know if it was just the lack mindset that he was projecting, but we could never afford anything. It was like, I want new shoes. We can't afford that. I want to go out to eat. We can't afford that. And so I was always jealous of my friends because they were like, they were seemed to be living the life. They went on all of these amazing vacations. They drove like BMWs and Mercedes Benz, like I went to their houses and they lived in like a castle or like a mansion. And I was like, I'm so jealous. And they wore really super trendy clothing. And I had like hand-me-downs from all my cousins. And so this was something that was kind of like, it was kind of like my thing where I always felt like I didn't belong, but also I felt jealous of other people. And so that feeling of jealousy, what I thought of something, I was like, well, like everyone in my town, all my friends, like they probably inherited generational wealth and I inherited generational trauma. So I'm like, great, that's what I get. But on a side note, I was thinking about this feeling of jealousy and I'm like, why am I feeling jealous? And I started to do some shadow work and something came up for me that was really deep. And I was like, okay, what is it about that someone has that, they are super smart, they achieved a lot in their career, they've accumulated a lot of wealth, it seems like they have the perfect happy family. Like, what is it about me? What's inside me that I was judging those parts that I those parts that I didn't have, like I was judging, and that was bringing up a lot of feelings of jealousy for me because it was something inside of me that I was judging. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Of course,
So,
absolutely. What do they have that I don't have? you
yeah,
know
yeah. So
yeah.
I feel like this was the start of my lack mindset where always felt like I'm never going to have enough money because why would I want to have money when all these people have money and they're, but I felt this deep sense of unworthiness. So I was telling myself, like that shit talk that I was telling you about, I was like,
Mhm.
well, you're never gonna have that because you're a worthless piece of shit. That was my internal dialogue. I'm never gonna
Mm.
have a happy family. I'm never gonna have a healthy, loving relationship because I'm a piece of trash. This was the
Wow.
dialogue that I
That's
was
brutal.
having. Right,
Yeah.
right. And then I was like, oh my gosh, when I started to realize that that was my internal dialogue, I'm like, how could I be talking to myself like that? Inside of me is a little 5-year-old girl, and all of these parts of her having feelings of shame and fear of rejection and abandonment and unworthiness. I decided that I needed to befriend those parts. And
Mm.
just the jealousy, I befriended the jealousy. And
Mhm.
so I have been slowly working on that part of me so that I no
Mm-hmm.
longer feel true jealousy. I feel pure joy and bliss and happiness for whoever was having that. You know, if
Mm-hmm.
they were having an
Mm-hmm.
abundant life, I would be like, I'm sending so much love to that person because they have done the inner work to have that, you know? And so that was now my messaging that I need to do some work on myself. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I mean, we could talk about that if you want. Like, how did you start to do that work on yourself, Lori? And how did you start to change that inner dialogue?
Well, thank you so much for asking that question, Claire. But I also just want to mention that, from our limiting beliefs, from our thoughts of our ego and feeling like we're all alone in this, we don't realize that those people who seem so happy that we may be jealous about and who seem like they're having the life that we always wanted potentially, that they too also are having their own internal pains and experience and suffering as well, because that's part of the human experience, is to experience the suffering, but hopefully to allow the suffering to not just break you down and hold you in a place of debilitating shame or fear, but to actually help to alchemize and to be able to help you rise into your greater truth, knowing, and wisdom, which is,
Yeah.
I personally feel that's why we're here, and that's why there is suffering, is to help us learn how to grow, how to heal, how to learn how to compost that shit and turn it into freaking pure gold, so we can plant the seeds of our dreams and be able to live the life that we want and create the fruits that we want. Um, but back to your question, I'm sorry, can you just ask that one more time? I just love the
Okay.
way you stated it.
How did you start to change or shift the narrative, that inner dialogue that you had been telling yourself since you were a child or since you were the troubled teen?
Mm, mhm,
What steps did you take to do that inner work so that you could change that dialogue to a place that where you're so much healthier now? You're so
mhm,
much,
mhm.
you feel worthy, you feel
Yeah.
abundant, you feel like,
Mhm.
you are worth it. And
Yeah.
like, how did you do that?
I think it really came down to, for me, I had to first grab hold of my narrative. And I had to be really clear and open and compassionate and honest with myself long enough to recognize what I was already feeling. No, because it's really easy to bypass, especially back then, bypass with, drinking, drugs, sex, whatever it was, bypass and be like, oh, do something else and not even think about it and pretend it's not even there. We do that um, as human beings because, we're afraid of the fear of change. Our bodies
Mm.
are hardwired to protect ourselves from even ourselves. And
Yeah, we're
so
always
I
going
had
towards
to,
comfort, right?
right? Always going towards comfort. Exactly. Who wants to go work out? Screw that. I'm going to eat a bag of chips and eat some ice cream and watch Survivor like for 5 hours in a row or something. Anyways, and so I really had to grab the narrative by the tail. I had to grab my negative belief. I had to grab my trauma, my self-hatred, my shame by the tail.
Mm.
And when I say by the tail, I mean because it is squirmy. It is squirmy and it's like does not want to be caught. And so I would grab it and I give myself the love and support and safety to actually look at what is causing me suffering. Look
Hmm.
at the belief
Yeah.
long enough for me to bring up some compassion, bring
Mm.
up some self love, bring up some empathy long enough to then see what my thoughts are, what my beliefs are, and then think about, does that thought or belief serve me? Is that a belief and thought that I want to continue to be having?
Mm.
And if I don't, then what thought or belief feels better? What thought
Mm,
or belief how can I shift that belief, that narrative, that story into something that feels better? And
mm-hmm,
so I had this thought for quite a long time of like, I hate myself. And so I just let myself sit with that thought and then bring some empathy, which then would bring my self awareness of, hey, maybe that part that hates herself really needs love and support.
mm,
And so then I would bring her that love, that compassion, that support. And then somehow, by bringing that compassion and awareness to that area, she would start to transform.
mm,
She would start to change, and she would start changing into being open to the idea of loving even herself
mm.
because of my willingness and, um, you know, strength and bravery to try to love that part. It was
Wow.
almost like I was teaching her through my willingness to love her.
Mm. That's so beautiful and powerful. What a powerful way to shift the narrative. You know,
Mhm.
it makes me think of something that I've learned to do something similar. When I look at you had said that phrase, I hate myself, that story that you would tell yourself, I hate myself. I would
Mhm.
do this and I would look at the polarity of whatever it is that I was saying, like I hate myself, I'm not worthy, I'm unlovable. And I would just look at the polarity of it. And let's say it was, I am lovable.
Mhm.
And I would go, and because we always tend to look for the negatives and we think about,
Mhm.
because I've literally blocked out of my memory almost my entire childhood. I don't
Mhm.
remember anything. And you know what's interesting? The the memories that I do have from my childhood were memories of shame and when I made mistakes and I felt embarrassed and shameful. And so those were the memories that I had stored in my conscious mind, but I know I had lots of other memories. So what I do now is I go and I look at the polarity of it. I am lovable, and I look for evidence in my life now that I am a lovable person. I can have good relationships. I can bring a lot of value and receive value from, relationships and friendships and partners and all the areas what I felt lovable in my family, even though in my adoptive family, even though my memories from growing up were bad. I know there were times where I was lovable. And I would bring up those exact instances. I would bring up the memories. I would feel into them and just remember how good I felt. And I would just like, where in my body do I feel this? Is it in my heart? Is it in my gut? Wherever it was, I would just feel it. And then I started to notice more and more instances from my childhood that I could remember. Oh, yeah, there was that time when I felt really good and I had a really nice time with my friend and I was lovable. And so it's so funny how your brain works. And if you've heard of the reticular activating system, I do believe that I'm tapping into my reticular activating system. It's a part of our brain that is kind of like a filter, how you see the world. If you think about like, sometimes if you think about, whoa, if I say, Laurie, don't think about the pink elephant right now. What are you going to think of?
Of course, I'm going to think of a pink elephant.
Yeah, so because I just put an image into so our conscious mind speaks in language, but the subconscious mind speaks in images and emotions, and so that's what's stored. So when I was like going around thinking about all these instances, and bringing up the images and then feeling the emotions, I started to shift just in the same way that you were doing. And so
Mm.
it's really it's part of this subconscious programming that we have. And you
Yeah.
can't out will or outpower the subconscious
Mhm.
mind. Like your conscious mind cannot do that. We have to speak in the language. of the subconscious.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
That's
I love,
incredible, Claire.
yeah, it's a cool
Yeah.
trick. It's like a party trick, but it really works.
That's better than beer pong.
Played
Oh my
plenty
gosh.
of beer pong in my days.
That's oh, I just want to say that that is absolutely incredible because you were doing the neuro repatterning
Mhm.
before that was even a word, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
were connecting with your subconscious thoughts and beliefs through the images
Mm-hmm.
of your memory and bringing in new memory and images, drumming it up and being able to see the good and the positive and the love for yourself that you weren't able to see at the time when you were experiencing it, but
Mm-hmm.
being able to go back and reprogramming that old belief or thought or image by seeing the positive, the love, the support that was already there in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's
Yeah.
like super powerful, babe. Um,
Yeah, and it works so well for any of our core wounds that we believe about ourselves. I'm not
mhm,
worthy, I'm not lovable, I will be abandoned. I have to stay small, I can't take up space.
mhm.
All of these core wounds that we have, you can do that for every single core wound and work on it,
That's
and
right.
shift the narrative. But I love
Mhm,
how you did talk about the pain and the suffering, because there is no growth without going through. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to kind of embrace, like we talked about on another episode, embrace the suck. But you have to really, I feel like if everything was handed to us, like we were just given everything, like everyone gets a participation trophy just for being here, right? Like it wasn't earned. It wasn't like you didn't have to work hard to get it. So it wouldn't
right.
really feel like, you wouldn't really appreciate it, I feel like. And so I
Mhm,
think the
mhm,
things that we have worked hard to heal within us, I feel like is so much sweeter now because we have gone through the suffering, we have gone through the pain, we've gone through the
mhm,
mud and the shit and, and all of it. And now that, you know, I think it's so much sweeter, and I have so much gratitude for
mhm,
my transformation and your transformation, because now look how, you're a bright light in the world, Laurie, and you're
mhm,
able to really serve, and and all of your gifts are just emulated, and you're helping and healing people. It's such a difference between someone who has done the work and healed versus someone who is still suffering and in pain and
mhm.
wanting to project that onto the world instead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's super powerful, Claire. I just also wanted to say that, in that moment back then when I was really letting myself look at my thoughts and look at my beliefs and starting to shift them, one of the key things that really helped was affirmations, was just trying on a new belief, trying on that new thought. And I just continued over and over to drill in that new belief and thought until I actually believed it.
Mm,
Because when we do that, we are creating a new chemical response to the feelings. And we are able to reprogram any negative belief,
mhm,
any doubt, fear, anxiety, depression, unworthiness, whatever it may be. But, they say the only way out is through. And by allowing us to give ourselves the safety and support to feel the feelings, and there is something better on the other side, and it's so worth the work and the journey. And I had an image when you were speaking there, of the Buddha, you know,
mhm,
and also of Kuan Yin. And if you're not familiar with Kuan Yin and Buddha, they are these spiritual figures in Buddhism and Taoism and such. and you always see them sitting on top of a lotus.
Oh, that's interesting. You're right.
Yeah. And the lotus, the symbolism of why they are sitting on top of a lotus flower is because lotuses grow in the deepest, dirtiest, siltiest muck. And they literally have to like rise up above the muck. And then they grow this beautiful lotus flower on top of the surface.
Oh, wow.
And so they have to literally go through the muck to then rise up and to be this beautiful flower that rises up above the muck, up above the water. And that's, it has become a symbolism of enlightenment. And
Mm.
that's why we always see these Taoist and Buddhist deities on top, sitting on a lotus.
Oh, wow. You are
Hmm.
a lotus flower, Lori. I love that. I love that image. I'm gonna think about that all the time. I do love lotus flowers, and I knew there was a reason why I love them.
And I feel
That's
that
awesome.
it's super powerful because that's the work that, we've done and that we are doing and we continue to do because I feel like, there's that deeper commitment that we make within ourselves to do the work because,
Mhm.
it's so worth it, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, Claire, I know that you've done so much work on being able to be who you are and live the life that you get to live now, and you're not you're not speaking to yourself like that young adolescent part saying that you're a piece of shit anymore. Thank goodness. But what are some things that you are currently still kind of working through?
Hmm.
Or maybe you're
Yes.
already enlightened.
I think it's a journey for sure. I don't think I'll ever be fully enlightened, but who knows? I'm working on it. I think I do believe that is worth it. I'm worth it. I feel worthy of enlightenment, Lori. But in addition to some of the things that we have done, to do the work, I think it's really important, like I was talking about letting go. That is my intention, and I have been really trying to let go of the shame that I've carried with me. And I think the shame that comes from being adopted is it's just inherent. I think it's a natural thing. And shame, I know I've done a lot of reading from Brene Brown, and she is like the shame expert. But what I know about shame is that it really breathes in like darkness and secrecy. And so what I've done, what I'm trying to do, and I'm still doing this, is I am trying to be super vulnerable, share my
Mhm.
story, be open and be heard and seen, because I do believe that's one of my personality um, needs, that I want to be heard and seen, and yet it is such a deep fear of mine at the same time. And I think it's that shame
Mhm.
piece. And I don't know, it's so deep. It's like this shame, also feeling like I'm gonna get found out. Like if I go to, and I've carried this and it's shown up in my career and different places where I've had to do any kind of public speaking, or even just in school. I remember in school being like, I never ever wanted to answer a question, raise my hand. If I was called on by the teacher, I would go into panic mode. I would be literally shitting my pants because I was so afraid of opening my mouth and someone would be like, "Oh, why are your eyes so slanty?" Or "Why are you so stupid?" Or, whatever. "Why is your name so weird?" Just othered. Like I always felt othered. So that was my biggest fear. And so I've been really working through the shame piece. And I do believe that just going and reconnecting, I think in places, safe spaces where I feel really truly safe to show up as myself, to be as big as I want to be aligned with who I really truly feel I am without having to hide certain parts of me. That's, I think, has been my journey. And that's what has brought me a lot of the ability to let go of some of this shame, because I do feel so much. so different. I feel like a weight is lifted. I feel at peace. I feel happy. I feel like I am able to express like who I am, like my full authentic self when I'm in safe spaces. And so I think that's been important, and just joining safe spaces like the Korean adoptee support groups, the Zoom calls, some of these conferences, the meetups. I've just been going out of my way to really do a lot of this work. And I think that's been so important for me. And not like, I don't have shame, but I think it's gotten so much better. And I'm proud of that part of me. I've done a lot of work, and it's been very intentional. But also reconnecting with I, my Korean identity, my culture. I've tried speaking the language. I'm still gonna try. It's so hard for me. But just going back to Korea, visiting, I'm gonna go back as many times as I can. I really feel like this is part of my calling to reintegrate this or reclaim my Korean heritage and culture and identity. I think is part of the journey for me. It's really helped. And I think that those are the things, and building these bridges so that I can connect with other Korean adoptees, and also lifting others up and giving them a platform to maybe amplify their voice through this podcast, or just holding space for them, or offering the Zoom calls for support, just because I feel like it's so needed. Like, that's how I am letting go of some of these feelings of unworthiness and shame. Yeah,
Mm,
and practicing more self-compassion, definitely. Just
mhm.
like, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm never going to pretend. But I think just like befriending those parts of me that I just before I'd be like, oh, that piece of shit, you know? Like now I'm like befriending that part of me, and I'm like, yeah, she's kind of cool.
Yeah, heck yeah, she's cool. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing, Claire. This has been such a nourishing conversation,
Yeah.
and I hope it's been nourishing for the listeners out there as well. That it's so worth the work, and wherever you are upon your journey, and just loving and accepting yourself right where you're at is such a key part. And for myself, where I am on my journey is, always evolving, and an area that I could share that where it feels like it's, current is, you know, being able to release that shame, and allow myself to be seen, to be heard for my absolute highest truth and full authentic self. And I do that work, but it still feels a little, a part of me feels a little nervous still sometimes, and I think it's because I don't want someone to be jealous or be angry or be mean to me for being who I am and the work that I've done. I have had people say to me things like, "Oh, it must be nice," or "Why are you so fucking happy?" And I didn't have the words to speak my truth back then, but I do now. And if I could say, speak my truth back to them, and that part of me is because I have done the work, and that I deserve happiness, and you deserve happiness too. And
Hmm.
that I choose to live an amazing life where I am happy and fulfilled and supported with, joy and ease and inspiration and connection and miracles. And that is my wish for all beings out there, to be able to live the life of their dreams and happiness, and for things to be a blessing and easeful, good, beautiful abundance in their lives with all their needs met. And so that's my wish for every human being and creature upon this earth, is that. And I'm
Oh.
sticking to it.
I'm gonna hold you to it, Lori. I love that. Yes, everyone in this universe we are human. We are worthy. We are worthy of everything that we want in our lives. We're worthy of love, happiness, joy, peace, abundance. We are worthy of having a family. You know, we might have started out with a rocky start. You know, I'm still trying to figure out where I came from. I might never know, and that's part of the problem. But hey, I am worthy regardless of where I came from and what my story is. So I love that, and I just want to tell all the listeners that yes, you are worthy, and you don't have to prove your worthiness. And if you're looking to do some more of this inner work that we're talking about, I would love to invite you to come to one of our Empowered Adoptee Retreats. We're having three coming up in this year. So the first one is going to be in Lake Tahoe, California, the end of April. And then the next one is going to be in Atlanta, Georgia, in the end of June, right after con. And then we have another one coming up in collaboration with Camp Rice. It's in Baltimore, Maryland, the end of July. So we're going to leave some information in the show notes. So click on that if you're looking to do a little bit of work on yourself, a little more healing, come together in community and heal together as a collective. Um, I would love to see you there. We would love to see you there.
We would so love to see you there. And yeah, that is such an important piece there, Claire. Thank you for mentioning about the Empowered Adoptee Retreats because that has been a super big catalyst for healing for me as well. That I didn't even know that I needed is coming together with other adoptees in safe spaces. And safe adoptee spaces has been so impactful and healing for me in ways that I did not know it would be. And I'm super grateful to do this work with you. And we would love to have you come and be in community together and be able to play and grow and heal and eat delicious food and be in beautiful
Yes.
places and amazing workshops and just really truly beautiful people.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Claire. Thank you everyone out there
Thank you, Lori.
listening.
Thank you. Love you. See you
Love
next
you.
time. Bye.